welcome. This is Mahadeva. I am the Thunder Wizard. All right, so today I thought I would do some review. I think we've got some new people on the channel, and so you may not have been following me from the beginning. So what I teach, we could call syncretic shamanism. So syncretism is when you take multiple disciplines and you unify them, you bring them together, you find what they hold in common, how they fit with each other, and that is called syncretism. So I'm a syncretic shaman. I have trained with multiple masters from multiple traditions from all over the world, and so I have sought to find the underlying science that is reflected in all of them. And this has been a tremendous amount of fun for me, because for me, if shamanism is not a science, then I'm not interested. I am not interested in religion because religion is based on beliefs, and beliefs are arbitrary. You know, I remember was watching something, somebody was in, I think, Israel, and they were asking Israeli Jews about what they thought of Christianity. And there was one response which I thought was just one of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard in my life. And that person said, they believe in the cross and we believe in the star, meaning the Star of David. And I thought to myself, really? That's the difference? The difference between the two is that one uses one symbol and one uses another, which gave me the feeling that that's just, you know, the religion that they grew up with, and since that's what they believe, you know, my family believes, that's what I believe. They believe something different, so they're different from us. Just no understanding of, you know, search for the truth or anything like that. You know, that's religion for you. I'm not interested in religion. I am interested in facts, objective realities that I can use to make my life better. I use the science of syncretic shamanism so that I can get the most out of my life. I think about that every day. In fact, I was thinking about something that I wanted to do today, and I was thinking about, is this really gonna give me, am I investing time and energy into something that's gonna bring me, you know, lasting happiness? Am I investing in something that's gonna pay off, or am I just thinking of, you know, some way of entertaining myself and, you know, end up, you know, losing time and energy doing that? And I realized that's just a waste of my energy. It might distract me for a little bit, but it's really not going to end up paying off in my life. Now, I don't have any judgments about anything. I am interested in what will benefit me. Shamanism is the science of interacting with all of the realms of reality. So basically, everything you've heard about shamanism is most likely incomplete, if not outright inaccurate. Since I've been on this planet and been interested in this stuff, going back to the 80s, the word shamanism has gone through a bunch of different definitions. And so there are people who, you know, when I first started getting into shamanism, researching it, let's see what is going on here. Since I started researching shamanism, when I first started shamanism, sorry, I got distracted because I'm looking at all my stuff here. What's going on? Why are you doing that? Just do your job here. Anyway, let us. All right. So I think now it's my apologies. I'm a typical man. I can only do one thing at a time. All right. So when I started getting into shamanism was about recreating Siberian spiritual practices, which is where the word shaman comes from. So in case you're not familiar with that, the word shaman comes from Siberia, the Siberian religion of Tengerism. Tengerism is actually what we would call shamanism, but a Siberian Tengerist priest or priestess would be a shaman. That's the singular. Some people write the word shaman like that's plural, which is not. The plural of shaman is shamans. That's the plural of shaman. Sorry, I get caught up in these little things. So that people were starting to play around with taking frame drums and beating frame drums in the same way that Native Americans do, to go in, well, at least some Native Americans do, in order to go into a trance-like state. And then in this trance-like state, you travel to the three worlds, the upper, the middle, and the lower. And you would do this for healing. You would do this to communicate with the spirits of the land. And you would find information, and you'd bring this information back and you would give it to the tribe. That is shamanism of the 1980s. The shamanism of today, I don't know if anything has changed, but in recent years when I've met people who claim to be shamans, what they were into was taking hallucinogens. And for them, shamanism was basically getting high on hallucinogens and having a trip, and somehow that meant something. And so I remember, meeting a girl who said, "I'm really into shamanism," and then I found out what she meant by that was that she'd, drop acid or, whatever it was, take ayahuasca or something like that, so she would trip out on a hallucinogen. We didn't have a whole lot in common outside of that, so that didn't last very long. And I remember meeting one of her friends, and I said, what are you doing? He says, "Oh, I'm a shamanic counselor." I said, "Really? So am I." And he says, "Oh, that's great." And I said, what sect?" And he looked at me. He didn't know what I was talking about. And I said, "Well, I mean, what school of shamanism?" Again, he looked at me like I didn't know he didn't know what the hell I was talking about. I finally got to the question, and he says, "Oh yeah, I guide people through shamanic journeys on entheogens." And I'm like, "Oh, so you give people a hallucinogen and then you counsel them through their trip?" And he says, "Yeah." And I said, "Oh." I didn't say anything because he didn't ask my opinion, but that's what shamanism was to him. So I can't say that anybody's definition of shamanism is right or wrong, because the truth is there is no such word as shamanism. Shamanism equates into priestism. It means nothing. There's no such religion called priestism. What shamanism wants to say is, I can't believe I forgot that word. Well, I'll remember the word. Somebody will remind me of it. But what shamanism wants to say is the belief that everything has a spirit. Everything in the universe, whether it's a rock, whether it's a tree, whether it's the sky, whether it's an idea, whether it's a person, whether it's a ghost, whether it's a god, whether it's a demon, whether it's a planet, everything has a conscious spirit. And that the shaman or the priest is somebody who acts as an intermediary to communicate with and interpret So not only does the shaman bring back messages to the human race and the human realm about things they need to know, but the shaman also takes human messages to the non-human, perhaps even the non-physical realm, because there might be a conflict. The shamanistic belief, again, a word I just completely made up, the shamanistic belief, philosophy, is that we live in a dynamic balance. And so the shaman is seeking to create a dynamic balance. So in shamanism, you don't have reaching enlightenment. In shamanism, you don't have escaping the matrix. You don't have salvation. These things are meaningless to the shaman because everything is part of everything. So the idea of escaping the matrix, for example, doesn't make any sense to a shaman because all you're doing is you're escaping from one realm to another. And if those two realms don't have a balanced interaction, it won't matter which universe you're in. You're going to be out of balance. From a shaman's perspective, if you are out of balance with yourself, which is everybody, by the way, everybody listening to me who wants to escape the matrix, who wants to achieve enlightenment, who wants to achieve moksha, liberation, escape reincarnation, you are out of balance. Now, I know that the majority of people, including myself, much of my life, have wanted this. So if you want that, if you want to escape, if you want to go someplace, be saved, go to heaven, you can't stand living in physical reality. It means that you yourself are out of balance. So even if you do escape to another realm, even if it's a perfect realm, guess what will happen? You will take your imbalance with you, and that realm will then become imbalanced. So the shaman seeks to find a balanced existence. So the shaman is already aware that they have liberation, they have moksha, they have salvation, they have all of these things if they are able to balance themselves within themselves and with everything around them. So this is the original religion of all people. You go back in time, in any ethnic background, religious background, you go back far enough in time, you will find a shaman. You will find a shamanic religion. I just recently watched a very interesting video on YouTube from a scientist who was sharing some very recent, I think it was just recent, very recent, some recent scientific data which proved that plants actually communicate. They scream. That when plants are in danger, like if you go and you like pull a plant out of the ground, if you chop a living plant, if you do anything physically to a plant, it screams. It will scream at levels that are as loud as a car. We don't have the ability to hear that frequency, so we don't hear it. But it's happening all the time. Whenever a plant is in danger or is, like I said, being damaged, pulled out of the ground, it screams. And it screams so loud that if you could hear it, you would have to cover your ears. It would hurt your ears. It would be that loud. So it literally is that loud. We just can't hear it at that frequency. So this is, again, proving that shamans are right, that everything has a consciousness, that everything, that what we're here to do is have a dynamic interaction. So vegans can no longer feel superior, because if what they're saying is that eating animals makes you, bad, evil, wrong, and that's why I eat only plants. Well, apparently plants experience tremendous trauma by being eaten, by being pulled out of the ground. It's so much so that they scream at levels that if we were to hear it would deafen us. So this explains why my ancestors, if you go way back, 1,000 years or more, my ancestors, when they would go out to chop down trees, they would first ask permission from the trees, and the trees that gave permission to chop it down, before chopping it down, they had to carve a symbol in the tree, which would then allow the spirit of the tree to find another place to live. And in fact, this was somebody's job. They would go out into the forest, and their job was to chop down wood, and they'd come back and they'd sell the wood to people. And when they did, they were also custodians of the forest. They would go out into the forest, and they would listen, and they would communicate and find out which trees were willing to be chopped down and which trees weren't, because they were talking to the spirits inside the trees. And there were spirits called wood wives. Wood wives. And these were female spirits that lived within the trees. And if you were out in the forest and you came across a woodwife, you had to be very careful, because you didn't know if that woodwife was going to help you or was going to trap you. And you had to watch, because if you were in the forest, way back then, and you're usually, they were men, and you're walking around looking for trees to chop down, and some beautiful woman comes out of the trees, there was a good chance that she was a woodwife. And you had to be very careful and on your toes. And if she turned around and what you saw was a hollowed out tree trunk, or if you saw a tail come out from underneath her gown, you knew you were dealing with a woodwife, and you had to be very careful. I remember watching a documentary about, I believe it was people in New Guinea, tribes in New Guinea. And they did the same thing. When they went to go create, make a canoe, a bunch of guys would go out into the forest, and the shaman would determine which tree was willing to be cut down. And then they had to do a whole ritual to the spirit of the tree so that it went somewhere safe. The flesh-eating bacteria, the Ebola virus, comes from people chopping down trees in the forest. That the virus lived in the trees. If you didn't chop down the tree, the Ebola virus would never have gotten released. And shamans were telling people, don't chop those trees down. The spirits in there will get very angry. This is a shaman. Everything has a consciousness, and everything can be communicated with. And so how you do that is really about what needs to be accomplished. Now, again, one of the big things that you run into with people who throw around the word shamanism, and I got into a conversation with somebody on here a while back who wanted to ask about, astral traveling. And so that's not their fault. They had assumed, because of the nature of my channel, that I was going to be into astral traveling, and we would talk about that. And this person said, I like to astral travel because I'm bored with this world. So, being who I am, this is why I say you're best to ask a question. Once you start throwing down statements, you're setting yourself up for me to, pick apart what you've said. And so I said something to the effect of, so you're doing this because you want to be entertained. And I said, that's not shamanism. You don't know, you're astral traveling, you don't know what you're experiencing. Now, of course, understandably, the person was defensive and says, yes, I do know. I know exactly what's happening, and I do verify. But the truth is that, if somebody's into astral traveling simply because they're bored, which I understand, and they want to entertain themselves, that's not shamanism. And you're very likely, at best, you're just playing around with your unconscious mind. At worst, you're deluding yourself with your own unconscious fantasies that don't help you. In fact, I've worked with people who were very deep into what they called dreaming, which was very similar to the kind of dreaming that Carlos Castaneda wrote about. And it was so debilitating for them because they would get so deep into these other realms that they couldn't function in this life. They couldn't get a job. They couldn't pay their bills. It became this obsession to go into this dream world that, and interact with these different beings. And, it was always a very dangerous thing. And so that's not shamanism either. There's nothing spiritual about that. Because shamanism has always been a practical science of making this life better. The first shamans were human beings who were hunter-gatherers, and in order to be able to function, they had to first find the food. So they had to find the herds of animals. They didn't have GPS maps. They didn't have all the kinds of stuff people have today. So they had to figure out how to do it. So out of a need to survive, they needed to eat. If they didn't eat, they would die. So they needed to eat. It was a physical survival thing. Because of that need, there arose somebody who had the ability or taught themselves the ability to go into trance and leave their body and scan around to see where the herds of animals were. And then they would come back into their body and they would say, the animals are over that hill, a day in that direction, and we are going to have whole herds of gazelles or buffalo or reindeer or whatever the heck it was they were eating. And then when humans started hunting and eating live animals, because before that we were, we ate whatever the hell we could find, bone marrow, berries, roots, whatever. But once humans started eating animals, then they had this experience of being cursed and attacked by the spirits of the animals they had just killed. So now they needed a shaman to make peace, because they had to then, figure out, like wolves do. Wolves do this naturally. Wolves, pick out the sick and the weak, the ones that are not, best suited for the survival of the species. So wolves actually help whatever species they hunt. So humans had to figure out that kind of scenario where they would, be able to communicate with the animals and see which animals were willing to be sacrificed, and then they had to do some kind of spiritual ritual to pacify that. And it's on video. It's on YouTube here. If you look for it, you can find a video of some, I believe they're South African tribesmen who hunt the way humans originally hunted, which was on foot. And it shows how they use their hands to find the animal, and they will just run behind the animal. This is why you see people jogging. Humans jog because that was how they hunted. They would find an animal and they would jog behind it. Now the animal runs at full speed, but can only run at full speed for a short period of time, and then it has to catch its breath. Human beings can jog for miles and miles and hours and hours. And so we would run them down. And so the animal would get, and you can see these guys doing it. It's on, they've got it documented on film. These guys are using their hands, certain gestures helps them feel where the animal is. They get into the mind of the animal and they follow tracks, and they're able to follow the animal for miles and miles until finally the animal collapses and has a heart attack. And then they take their spear and they throw their spear into the animal, and they say that it's really not about killing the animal, it's really just it energetically shocks them out of their body. And then as the animal is dying, you see them picking up sand and soil and caressing the animal and talking to the animal to send its spirit back to someplace safe. This is shamanism. It's about survival. So if you're doing anything in shamanism in order to escape, solely just to escape and have fun, and you're not able to take that information and bring it back to make your physical life better and to help other people, you're technically not practicing shamanism. All right? So I wanted to get that basics of it. Now let's take a look at the different structures of the body. So you have, from varying degrees, you go from physical to the non-physical. We are made up of multiple systems. So we have, nowadays we have modern medicine, which has done quite a good job of understanding the most dense physical aspects of the human body. The bones, the organs, the muscles, the tendons, the nerves. So modern medicine has a pretty good understanding about that. Doesn't have a very good understanding of anything, less physical. So let's take a look at the three different energy systems. I've shared this with you before. This is what makes what I teach syncretic. I syncretize different sciences. Now, the way that I understand it is that as human beings are evolved, and we are in the midst of evolving all the time, as human beings have evolved, different people in different locations of the earth have been given, by the Great Spirit, have been given mastery of certain things, and that's where we get certain spiritual shamanic sciences. So the East Asians have mastered chi and life force energy, and the East Indians, they've mastered Kundalini. The Siberians have mastered the three selves. So have the Hawaiians. They've mastered the science of the three selves. So if we look at this as a science, because if it's not a science, like I said, I'm not interested. I don't care. If we look at this as a science, which means that it's true no matter what cultural or religious filter you're looking through. If it's true and it works in one culture, it'll work in another. Gravity is not something that is arbitrary. In other words, gravity isn't something that works in the United States but doesn't work in Africa. Gravity works all over the world. The basics of the law of gravity is the same everywhere. That's what makes it a science. It goes beyond any arbitrary cultural, religious definitions. This is what we're looking for here, syncretic shamanism, the science of things. So there are three major energy systems. The first one, as I've said, is in the East Asians have mastered chi, prana, life force, breath energy, which is why the Chinese are so good at qigong and have all the power associated with that. Taoism especially, which is the evolution of the indigenous shamanism of East Asia. That's what Taoism is. The East Indians have mastered the fire element, which is Kundalini. And then you have another force, which most people don't know of, which I teach here at thunderwizard.com and here at the maoshan.thunderwizard.com, which is the lightning force. And these are the three things that I teach people, to combine these two. All right, somebody has a response. So Jameson has a response. Anyway, animism, thank you. He's helping me out. Animism. So, as I said in the beginning, what most people, when they talk about shamanism, what they don't realize is that shamanism really wants to be animism. If you don't know what that word is, look it up. Shamans are simply the animist priests of the Tengarist religion in Siberia. Now, very quickly, the whole point of that, the word shamanism is a non-word. It doesn't exist because shamanism translates into priestism. It's a meaningless word. The reason why we use the word shamanism is because most people don't know what the word animism means. And this happened in the 1700s, I believe. European Christian missionaries went to Siberia, and they saw these Siberians practicing their animist religion, and the priests of that religion were called shamans. So from then on, Europeans started calling all animist religions shamanism. And that's why incorrectly you'll go, yes, there's an African tribe, and people will mispronounce it. The shaman of that tribe, I mean, people do it all the time because people don't know what animism is. And what's ironic is that had you gone 200 or 300 years before, those Christian missionaries, their direct ancestors would have been animists. So that's kind of strange. So when you hear somebody use the word shamanism, look to see if they know what the word means. If they're talking about anything other than animism, which is finding a balance between the human world and the non-human worlds, they're truly not shamans. Somebody calls himself a shaman, and what they do is they drop acid to trip out. They're not a shaman. If somebody calls themselves a psychic, but what they do is they're able to communicate with other realms and bring back practical information that helps people heal, survive, they are a shaman. They are an animist priest or priestess. All right. So let's take a look at the three things. I'm getting lost in all kinds of different things. Let's take a look at the three things here. So let's start with Taoism. We have the three ones. Okay, so you see there's somebody meditating, and you see these 3 points of light. These are not chakras, although there are chakras in each one of, overlapping each one of the dantians. Dantian means boiling pot. And these are places in the body where you take life force energy, and through your powers of meditation, you refine the energy. You refine the energy into, gold. Gold symbolizes, the perfection of something. And you have the higher, the upper dantian, the middle dantian, and the lower dantian. You'll see here that the lower dantian is the largest. And so in many traditions in the East, you will hear people use the word dantian in the singular. They will say the dantian. Even though there's 3, they will say the dantian. Focus on the dantian. And what they're saying is that is the most important crucible to focus on. That the other 2, even though they are extremely necessary and integral for your purposes as a human being, the one you need to focus on the most is the lower dantian. So this is where we get the word people gazing at their navel, contemplating their navel, because that's exactly what they're doing. They're in meditation and they're focused on that. As I'm talking to you now, I'm putting my hands over my navel. And this is one of the easiest and most direct ways to balance yourself physically, emotionally, and energetically. You have a little brain in each one of these dantians, by the way. Of course, you have a big one up here. You have one in your heart. You have a bunch of nerves that come together and act as a brain. And you have one in the navel. A bunch of nerves come together and act as a brain. But you also have the 3 selves. So the lower dantian, this big up here, the big bright spot in the bottom, that is where you align your psychological hard drive, your lower self. Your lower self contains your unconscious mind and your subconscious mind. Those are 2 different things, by the way. And in there you have all of your programming, your psyche, your personality. So you are not your personality. I call myself Mahadeva. My name is Michael Denny. That is my lower self psyche. That's not me. That's not the true essence of me. That's my lower self. In order to function as a human being in the world, you have to have an identity. You have to have a facade that you wear that you identify with. So you have to identify as, my name is so-and-so, I'm like this, I think this about this, these are my characteristics. All those things are in your lower self. And this is the goal of psychology, which is very important. Shamans originally were counselors. They were the psychiatrists of the tribe. Besides doing the healing and interacting with other forces and bringing balance, they would also counsel people. They would have the ability to tell you, basic stuff of how to keep your psyche together. So this is the lower Dantian, and that's why the Dantian is the most important. And people very often, myself included, want to open their third eye. They want to open their heart chakra. Good for you. That's not going to do you a whole hell of a lot of good if your lower Dantian is not balanced. If you have chaos, if your negative programming from this life, your negative psychological programming, any dysfunction you've lived through as a child, any past life unresolved issues, if those things are not balanced or at the very least, put away in their proper place, then you're going to have chaos. Your lower self is the power center that actually creates your entire universe. Everything from your physical makeup, your physical health, to literally the atoms that are around you. When you look outside of you, everything you see is a projection of your lower self. If you live in misery, that's because you're projecting it. It means that you have chaos in your lower self, which means you will have chaos in your outer world. You don't have any money. You don't have good relationships. You don't like the politics of where you live. All those things are all your own projection, which comes from your lower self. So that's why the East Asians focus on the Dantian, and why you meditate on the Dantian. Because if you don't have that, it doesn't matter if you've opened up your heart center or your third eye, your life will still be in chaos, and you'll be miserable and poor and lonely and upset. And that is not what shamanism is about. Shamanism is about having balance. If you're not, it's okay if you're not, but if you're not happy, then you have some work to do. You know that you're spiritually advanced and healthy if literally you're happy. You're physically healthy, you're financially able to provide for yourself, you have healthy, loving relationships in your life. This is a sign that your lower self is ordered. That, as the Buddhists would say, your mirror is clean. This is why when you see, if you just look, like if you were to type in right now meditation or meditator into Google, you would see a lot of pictures come up of the moon shining on a windless ocean or a lake. On the moon, you'd see this perfect reflection of the moon coming off of the water, and you might see a picture of somebody meditating there. Because that's exactly what meditation is. The goal of meditation is to have the mind be able to objectively mirror itself, to see itself. And so if your mind, your moon, in your lower Dantian is, if your lower Dantian is not ordered, then the moon, it's going to be like wind on the water, and you're not going to get an accurate reflection of the moon on there. Which means that your life is going to be full of chaos, pain, misery, poverty, violence, whatever it is. It all comes from you. Then you have the middle Dantian. This is where your soul resides. Your soul is your true essence. Your lower Dantian is actually a being in and of itself. You've merged your identity with that, and you control it. So the soul is responsible for the health of the lower self. But if the soul is not in control, if the soul is not the king of your universe, then the lower self will create anarchy. People who come onto the channel who are anarchists who believe that there should be no government. Well, unfortunately, when you have a bunch of people in one place, there tends to be a need to organize things. There always has been. That's why there's always a chief of the tribe. There's always somebody who acts as an arbitrator to listen to everybody's voices and who makes final decisions for the benefit of the community. That's never going to go away. If you don't have that, which in your body would be the king, the soul, if the soul is not making sure that it's making decisions for the benefit of the whole community, then the lower self will then rebel. It will rebel and it will create anarchy. It will create chaos. And this is what you have when you have people who complain about, people who complain about not being able to make any money. That whatever it is, somebody's doing it to them. The liberals are doing it to them. The big corporations are doing it to them. Whatever. There's no jobs where they live. They'll complain about money. They'll even say money is evil. We need to get rid of money. Money's just a symbol. It doesn't even really exist. But they have to get rid of the symbol. And all it means is that their lower self is in chaos and that their middle self is not running the show. If the middle self is not running the show, then you have chaos. If you have a dog, if you know anything, if you've raised dogs, you know that really intelligent dogs need a lot of training and a lot of attention. If you don't give your intelligent dog a lot of interaction and a lot of training and a lot of discipline, it will tear the house apart. It will chew up the furniture. It will pee on everything. It will bark. It will keep you awake. It'll poop in your shoes. And that's because that dog is saying, I need a pack leader who's going to keep me in line. I'm not comfortable if you don't keep me in line. Like people, this drives me crazy. People who leave their dog in their backyards when they go to work all day. If you're not somebody that works from home and lives at home like I do, I can promise you that your dog, when you're away, is barking the whole time you're gone. I guarantee you. Your dog is not happy just because you put them in the backyard. Your dog, from the moment you leave, begins to bark and will bark all day. And then around 4:30 or 5, if you come home at 5, your dog will be barking even louder and more intensely from 4:30 to 5 o'clock when you come home and the dog stops barking and you think your dog has been quiet all day. It hasn't. It's been bothering everybody in the neighborhood. And if you go to work at 6 o'clock in the morning and I'm asleep, guess who gets to be woken up by your fucking dog? Me. Dogs like structure. So my now ex-wife, she used to train dogs, very intelligent dogs, and she would put dogs in kennels while she was at work. Now, that used to bother me. That's so cruel and horrible. Why are you putting the dog in kennels? And she said, because dogs are territorial and they get uncomfortable if they have too much territory. So they run around and bark trying to take care of their territory. So when you put them in a small confined space, they actually feel like they're in their den, they're happy, and they're quiet. And it was true. Now you have to let them out every 3 or 4 hours to pee, but if you're not there to interact with them, they are happier if they're put in a kennel. So those of you who have dogs and you think that you're good, loving dog owners and you leave your dog out in your backyard for 8 or 10 hours a day, your dog is traumatized. And that dog is traumatizing everybody else in the neighborhood. I guarantee you. All right. This is your lower self. If your lower self is not having the structure of the king lording over them and making decisions about how this body and this identity is going to function, your lower self is going to go into chaos and it's going to start barking at everything. And then you're going to have a miserable existence. You're going to be poor. You're going to be unhappy. You're going to have dysfunctional relationships. You're going to think everybody's out to get you. This means that your lower self is not ordered. And it means that your soul doesn't have the ability to control its kingdom, which is you. So the lower self is the people. It is all of the people in the kingdom. Because there's a bunch of things in your lower self. There's not just one thing. There's a bunch of things. That's where the dwarves live. In my ethnic tradition, this is in the human body. This is where you'd find the dwarves. They live in the lower self. They create everything. They have magical powers to create the world. And if they're not creating an ordered, balanced, beneficial world for you, then they're going to be creating all kinds of chaos. People who have ghosts. I have never met you, I don't know anything about you, but if where you live in your house, you have ghosts, guess what? You have a disordered lower self. Because that could be your own dwarves running around. There have been people, one example is a woman who had a husband and a daughter. I believe they had a daughter. And wherever they went, their house was haunted. And it was haunted by a little girl. And the little girl would run around and would giggle. And it would do things like knock things over and start fires. And it would attack the husband. So the husband would be like taking a nap, and the little girl would attack the husband, like stab it, bite it, punch him. And he'd wake up and hear the little girl running out of the, they were flipping out. So they'd move from one place to another. And everywhere they went, this ghost came with them. Until they found out that it wasn't a ghost. That the wife had been sexually abused at the age of 7. And it was such a traumatic experience for her, understandably. She suppressed those memories and those feelings at the age of 7. So what ended up happening is that little 7-year-old within her that had not dealt with the trauma, when she would go to sleep, would come out and would run around and would cause all kinds of chaos and would attack the male. Understandably. So she had unconscious rage towards her husband because he was a man, and she still had some unresolved anger towards men, understandably, towards men. And it was really frightening until she was able to then go to counseling and get a psychiatrist and a psychologist and talk about what happened to her. And when she did that, the ghost disappeared, never came back. So your soul has to be in control of your reality. And then you have the higher self. The higher self is also a separate being. It is not you. You are your soul. Your lower self is a bunch of beings running around doing things. They're the animals in your reality. They're the dwarves. Then there's the soul, which is the king. And you are that. You are here. The person listening to me is the soul. Then you have the higher self, which is another being. And this other being is, we don't know, I don't know. I'm still open to learn, but the higher self could have been a soul that has moved on, and their job now in this lifetime is to guide you. So they're paying back their karma. Those of you who want to escape physical reality and not be reincarnated, you might end up being a higher self. You might still have to be part of this human world, but you're going to be hovering around somebody's head, being there to give them advice. And that's what the higher self does. It's there to give you advice. It doesn't impose itself. It's there to advise you. It's also there to bring information from the higher realms, because it's connected to the gods, to the elves, to the ascended masters. And so if you want to connect with the gods, the elves, the ascended masters, you will have to do so through your higher self. And now that you have all three of these here, they have a specific way of communicating. And you will find this embedded in the mythology of indigenous spiritual practices. In the Norse tradition, they say the three gods, the trinity that rules the universe, is Odin, Vili, and Ve. Odin is the higher self. Vili is the soul. And Ve, Vili isn't the soul. Sorry, Vili is the lower self. Sorry. And Ve is the soul. Ve comes from the same root as Vishnu in the which is also the soul or God. All right, Odin, Vili, and Ve. So that's my ethnic tradition, and and you don't say Odin, Ve, Vili. You don't say Vili, Ve, Odin. It's always Odin, Vili, and Ve. And that's telling you the sequence in which you receive higher information. It first comes to your higher self. Your higher self then gives it to your lower self. Your lower self then gives it to the soul. The soul then makes decisions. The soul then, when you make a decision, what do? You put your guts into it, your lower self. You make a decision, your lower self, the army, says, okay, we're going to go and make that happen. But if you don't have communication between these three in that order, you won't have any clue what's happening spiritually. So if you feel lost, in the world, that you don't belong here, I don't understand, I don't feel connected to anything. If you feel lost, it means that the communication is not happening fully, at least all the time. It means that your lower self is still unregulated. It is chaotic. It is undisciplined. This is why discipline is so important. Just like, you got to put your dog in the kennel when you go to work so it doesn't run around barking in the backyard because it feels it needs to protect this giant backyard from intruders. And because it misses you and it's angry at you for leaving it. You put it in a kennel, it feels safe. Like babies. Babies, if you don't wrap them tightly, they cry because they need to feel that they're surrounded and protected all the time. Your lower self needs this. If you don't have this, if you don't have the discipline, if the dwarves in your lower self are not feeding off of life force energy, which is your job to feed them life force energy, if this isn't happening, then you will have chaos. You will have misery. And your soul will not be receiving information from the higher realms because that has to come from your higher self to your lower self and then to your soul. So if you feel disconnected, it means your lower self is all screwed up and you're not getting any information, which means you don't feel connected to the universe, you don't feel connected to the spirit realm, which is important for your health and your happiness. So that's the Norse tradition. In the Chinese tradition, it's heaven, earth, heaven, earth, and man. This is the same thing. Higher self, lower self, and then the soul. The soul is a tiny white hole. So there's black holes in the universe and there's white holes in the universe. Your soul is a white hole. It means that it's this tiny infinitesimal point of light, infinite light, that is a doorway to timelessness. Your soul does not live in three-dimensional space-time. In order to keep the soul able to be itself without destroying physical space-time, it needs to be surrounded in a protective shell, which is in the middle self you have this power of lightning, this feminine power that surrounds your soul. It also protects your soul from the cruelty and the harshness of three-dimensional reality. Because in three-dimensional reality, people hurt other people. Life doesn't go the way you always want. There's always danger. And so in order to protect yourself from that, your soul has surrounded itself with this feminine power of lightning. And that lightning acts as a shield between you and your emotional pains. When somebody hurts you, betrays you, rejects you, traumatizes you, this lightning energy around the soul protects you from that. It's called the king's bodyguard, the emperor's bodyguard. And that energy is normally facing inward, protecting the soul. But it is the most powerful energy within your body. Most people never really tap into it. So if you don't deal with your emotional traumas, then the energy that would normally go to protecting the soul then goes into protecting these wounds and keeping them from harming the soul. And then you end up getting physically ill, among other things, because all of that energy is no longer protecting the heart. There are traditional Chinese medicine practitioners who, if they know their job, they can feel your pulse and go, "Oh, you've been divorced." They can feel it because they can feel it in this center of your heart. Your heart center will tell them they've got a wound in there. So that's stealing some of your energy. So that's the middle self. So here are the three selves: the higher self, the lower self, and the middle self. You are the middle self. Your job is to find whatever practice or technique which allows the soul to become king. When the soul is king, then you will have all of your desires met. You will have all of the money you need. You will have all the physical health you need. You will live where you want to live. You will have love in your life. You will have individuation within yourself. You will be happy and comfortable, and you won't need anything or anyone, but you won't need to protect yourself from anything or anyone. You will be open and flowing with the universe. This is the ideal. Now, not all of us can achieve that. It's taken me 57 years to get where I am now, and I really like where I am. But I have a lot more growing to do. So you don't have to beat yourself up because you're not perfect. But you will need a discipline. You will need a discipline to be able to manage all of this, to be able to achieve that, which is everything that I teach here. Everything is based on that. Everything I teach is a hack. I get you to hack into these powers within you. The life force energy, which is the Qigong. The Kundalini, which is dealing with psychological issues, understanding the 7 chakras, and doing exercises to help you become mature on all the 7 levels of your interaction with physical reality, which is what the chakras are. They're not what most people think. And then we have the lightning energy. And if you want to achieve that, we've got the Mao Shan here, as well as at thunderwizard.com, we have the Warrior 90-day Lightning Qigong. Focus of the Warrior 90-day Lightning Qigong and the Mao Shan is to give you access to that lightning power. Not everybody can handle it. It's lightning, just like it says. So I love this little interaction, or this little whatever you call it. Dr. Manhattan here. This is the process. If you're willing to go through this kind of a transformation, you can access the most powerful energy in the universe. And if you use it in the right way, which is, as you see here, Dr. Manhattan is reanimating himself and creating a more perfected version of himself. If you use it for that reason, then you will achieve tremendous bliss and happiness. If you use it for selfish reasons, then it will destroy you and it won't put you back together again. So there's always an upside and a downside to everything. All right, so I think I talked about the main three things that I wanted to talk about. I didn't go into depth into the chakras, but I can. If you have questions about what the chakras are, I can do some review on that. We've talked about all this before, but every now and then we need to go and review it because new people are coming to the channel all the time. So let's see, how many people do we have here? Let me refresh this page. It says here we've got 31 people watching. So I take questions. The way that this works is you ask me a question, an honest question. You write the word question in all caps so I can see it. And then you write your question, thoroughly well thought out question. I will answer it. I also encourage you to share an honest feeling. And we've talked about that before, but those are the two most important ways to function. The reason why I do this is, number one, I'm not interested in listening to your opinion, nothing personal. If I want to learn from you, I'll go watch your channel. I'm not interested in you agreeing or disagreeing with me. I don't care about that. I'm interested in sharing with you the process that's helped me get to where I am. One of the things is to ask honest questions. Learn how to ask real questions. So if you ask a question and I start saying, you're shoving your opinion down my throat, it's not just because I'm being critical. It's that I'm mirroring back to you that kind of question, the universe won't respond. The universe does not respond to questions that are not formed honestly and authentically and accurately. If you're coming from an unconscious, passive-aggressive, if there's some ego thing associated with your question, you're going to get a negative response from the universe. If you know how to ask an honest question, the universe will teach you. Sharing an honest feeling is also important because in order to know what questions are honest, you must know what your feelings are. And so when you can get to your feelings without having to again, be passive aggressive or have, some kind of agenda behind it other than wanting to learn, you first have to know what your honest feelings are. So that's why I ask you to do that. And again, if you don't do that, you end up putting a target on your forehead, and I'm going to, I'm trying to get more compassionate about this, but I'm more than likely going to dissect you in front of the whole class, so that we can all learn. Daniel Cardenas has an opinion. Again, I don't recommend having opinions here. But I guess there's nothing really wrong with what he said. Vincent.thunderwizard.com says hello. He is one of my astrology. I certified him. Certified him in my form of Vedic astrology, and his website is Vincent.thunderwizard.com. By the way, I give that to everybody who goes through the astrology course. If you want to become an astrologer and you want to have a method of astrology that I use, which I've found very helpful for myself and for others, you can find that if you go to courses.thunderwizard.com, and if you become certified, I'll give you your own .thunderwizard.com, and you can use that as a way of perhaps making some money if you want. All right, Jameson, yes, Jameson responded and helped me out, because sometimes when I talk, I get so many thoughts, I lose words, falls out of my thesaurus. So I had forgotten the word for shamanism is really animism. Vincent.thunderwizard.com has a question. He says, would lightning qigong or celestial qigong considered a form of shamanism? Yes. In fact, if somebody really wants to understand the essence of Taoism, the essence of Taoism is shamanism. Somebody, actually, I met this guy once. A Taoist energy medicine healer guy. Somebody asked him a question about, well, why doesn't Taoism line up like other religions? And he says, because Taoism is a magical religion, which is a really great way of looking at it. Religion is about belief. It's about the intellect. The intellect is the interface between your soul and three-dimensional reality. Without your intellect, you cannot interpret what's around you. I wouldn't be able to know this is a table, that's up, that's down. I wouldn't be able to navigate in three-dimensional reality without my intellect, because the intellect has to make judgments. So the intellect makes judgments for you so that you can create a map to function, whether it's in relationships, whether it's in knowledge, wisdom, but also your psychological being. If you were just exposed to all of your feelings all the time, you would be overwhelmed with them. This is the essence of many psychological disorders. People are overwhelmed with all of their emotions, and they can't figure out how to organize them in a way so that they can function. So religions are about the intellect, which is why people who are religious are so judgmental, because the intellect means to pick apart from among. It means to make judgments about things. And this is why I can tell when somebody's stuck in their intellect. By the way, people who smoke a lot of weed, people who drink, people who use outside chemicals to deal with their emotional internal life also become very highly intellectual. People who have grown up in very dysfunctional homes in order to survive also become very intellectual. And so they separate themselves from their feelings through their intellect. And so this is why religion is harmful. Because religion is about, if you believe this, you'll be saved, which has nothing to do with your essence. It has nothing to do with whether or not you're organized or if there's balance within you. This is why Christians are always waiting to die, because they just tune out. They just believe in Jesus, and I'm just wait till heaven, and then all they have, even though they talk about love all the time, what do they focus on? They're always pointing their fingers at everybody else who's wrong and evil. They live in their intellect. So lightning Qigong gets you connected to your emotions, because it's your emotional self that where your heart is, which is protecting your soul. Your emotions, when they're flowing and they're balanced, those are the ways that your soul interacts with other people and with the world. It's through emotions. We are emotional beings. And emotions are associated with actions and with real life, real practical reality. That doesn't mean that people who are emotional are ordered, because you can have both. You can either be too intellectualized and too dissociated from your feelings, or you can be so wrapped up in your impulses and your emotional reality that you don't have any discipline, and so you can be miserable that way also. This is where shamanism comes in. You have to have a balance. Celestial Qigong and lightning Qigong both tap into this lightning power. The Celestial Qigong is very important because it creates, it opens up the meridians and the nerves to be able to handle the higher levels of the lightning Qigong. So I recommend that people do the Celestial Qigong ideally first, but if you're coming into it and you're excited, you can do the Celestial Qigong while you're doing the lightning Qigong. And I'm going to have to start uploading some videos on the Patreon channel to help people understand how to do that as I'm adding more and more exercises. So to answer your question, yes, it is a form of shamanism, because shamanism is about that. It is the science of creating a balance that allows you to be your full self. The whole point of this is to be able to intend your reality, to intend your highest reality. Those of you who want to escape and go to some other realm because you're bored here, or this is an evil place, or this is a harsh place, this is the place. This is the hologram, the holodeck on the Starship Enterprise. You go on the holodeck and you create a fantasy world. This is it. This world is the holodeck. And if you have balance and you have the power of the heart center, you can literally intend your ultimate fantasy. It's right there in front of you. It's always been there. You just can't see it. And trust me, when you start to see how you're blocking yourself, I'm experiencing this now in one of the biggest ways I ever have. Everything I've ever wanted is right in front of me. Right here where I am. I have everything here that I've ever wanted beyond my wildest dreams. Even more so now than I thought I did. And it's simply because I am overcoming my unconscious resistance to my highest experience of this reality. And lightning qigong is one of the tools that I use to be able to accomplish that. I'm not here to become a master. You know, some guy came onto the channel the other day and asked, what makes you a master shaman? And end result is he said he decided that I wasn't a master shaman because according to him, I don't have the ability to dislodge the soul out of the body or something like that, which I don't know where he got that. Where he got the idea that that's what a master shaman was. Truth is, I do have that ability. It's not something that I'm interested in. So he's wrong on the one hand. He made an assumption that wasn't true, but it's also untrue. That's not a master shaman. Just being able to do that doesn't make anybody a master shaman any more than pulling out a gun and shooting up a school makes you, a powerful person. It's just another tool. It doesn't mean anything. A master shaman is somebody who is able to create balance within themselves. Where they go, they create a balanced environment wherever they go, and they have the ability to intend their perfect soul reality. That's a master shaman. It's not about any label. It's not about looking good or achieving anything. It's just about really being 100% in this three-dimensional holodeck and being able to master all of the the different settings of the holodeck. That's it. This is this is not coming to this earth is not about becoming good. It's not about becoming spiritual. It's not about, working through your mistakes and not being a bad person anymore. It's not about being all about love. All those things are things that you want. It's about being able to master the holodeck and having as much fun as you can. You want to end your incarnations in this life? I'll tell you exactly what you need to do. Make sure that when you leave this life, you have no regrets. That when you look back on this life, you go, yeah, I did everything I wanted to do and I had so much fun doing it. I can't imagine more fun. I mean, I've done everything. This is Disneyland. When do you stop going to Disneyland? When you've been on every single ride 5 or 10 times and you've seen everything that Disneyland has to offer, and now you go to Magic Mountain. That's how you get through this life. If that's not what you're doing, if you have any judgment about three-dimensional reality, I guarantee you will reincarnate. If you have any desire to escape this reality, I guarantee you will reincarnate. You don't want to reincarnate anymore? Stop complaining. Stop whining. Stop blaming everything and everybody else. Learn how to see past all of that. Learn how to order your lower self so that this holodeck then becomes a giant playground. I mean, I'm struggling with this because I still have all kinds of old stuff inside of me telling me, why I should be shameful of this. And, it's amazing. Some days when I do the most work, at the end of the day, I'm like, gosh, I feel so bad. I didn't do anything all day. And I go, wait, what am I talking about? It's amazing if we can get past all of the internal garbage that is constantly, the internal critic that's constantly criticizing us. And we can see what's in front of us. You'd be amazed. You don't like where you live? Move. You don't like your job? Get another one. You don't want to work for somebody else? Create your own business. There's no reason why you can't do it. If I can do it, you can do it. All right, what else? Zach Johnson. So Zach, again, welcome to the channel. Have you read any of my books? This is why, again, it's good to just ask questions. Your comment tells me you haven't read any of my books, that you haven't watched any of the videos about dwarves. Okay, we're not talking about dwarfism. That's a whole other thing. Jameson-san, question. Could you discuss the purpose of lineage, authority in light of syncretism? All right, so there's a bunch of different things. Let's start with the first one. Lineage. So I've said in my books, I've said that I focus on researching and teaching spiritual practices that have an unbroken connection into prehistory. If you read my books, you will see this quote many times. Unbroken connection into prehistory. That phrase is repeated throughout all of my books because that's important. That's another way of saying lineage. The reason why I focus on that is because in my experience, the majority of modern Western magic, of modern New Age beliefs, systems, all of that, these are things that have been created within the last 1,000 to 2,000 years. And this is during the realm of Christianity, during the reign of Christianity. Christianity came in and completely disconnected the Western world from its prehistoric lineage connection to the ancestors. And that's why Western religion, Western magic is so, in my experience, I'm not trying to offend anybody, but in my experience, it's very, at best, clunky. You know, Western magic for me is like trying to drive an 18-wheeler through a slalom course. Whereas pre-Christian lineages, which are now basically found in other cultures, like Taoism and other places like that, that's like driving an electric motorcycle through a slalom course. It's easy, it's fast, and it's powerful. Western magic is really clunky, and it takes a bunch of effort, and I don't. That's why I don't practice it. But that's just me. I don't have to be right about that. So lineage is about connecting yourself to the practitioners that went before you, and the farther you go back in that lineage, you will be connected to the ascended masters, the elves, the bodhisattvas, and the gods themselves. And this is why in traditional spiritual practices there will be some kind of initiation where somebody will put their hand on your forehead, or they'll chant a mantra, or they'll do a ritual or something like that, which then will connect you directly to the ancestors. And then you will have a communication with them. And so a lot of time is spent doing ritual just to open the connection with them. The Mao Shan is one of them. Every time you do like the Mao Shan, I can't see if I'm pointing to this stuff here. If you do these things here, you will be, when you do those forms, you will be connecting directly to the ascended masters of that tradition. They will literally be in the room with you, adjusting your posture and putting energy into you. You'll notice one day you'll do it and you'll be filled with such power you can barely hang on to yourself. And then you'll go back the next day and you won't feel anything. Well, that's because they gave you an initiation. They gave you power. They filled you with power, and then your job now is to keep doing the practice so you can get to that level on your own. They will open up, all kinds of strange things will happen. This was normal for all pre-Christian spiritual traditions. This was a normal thing, and this is called a lineage. Originally, what would happen back in hunter-gatherer days, we're talking thousands, if not tens of thousands of years ago, if it was a patrilineal spiritual practice, which many of them were, some guy would, hunter-gatherer would be traveling through somewhere, following the herds, and he'd come into somebody else's territory. Now, this was very common. There'd be another people with another language, maybe even another ethnicity, and in order to make peace, they would marry one of the women there. So they'd marry one of the women, and then that woman would go travel with the man as he traveled around following the herds, and they would have a son. The son would then be, would be genetically, biracial. But because he was so-and-so's son, this is why Jameson, the son of James, right? That's a name. Thompson, the son of Tom. Whatever, son of so-and-so. That is a spiritual lineage connection. So you'd have a son, and the son would, but when it got to be, coming, 13 years of age, just heading into puberty, they would have a ritual where the boy would become a man. And in that ritual, the boy would then be connected to the lineage of the father. And so people get so messed up on ethnicity. Racists get so messed up on ethnicity. They have no clue what they're talking about. Because somebody's pedigree had nothing to do with their ancestry. If you adopted somebody from a completely different race of people, if you adopted them into your hunter-gatherer family and you put them through the ritual that connected them to their lineage, you would be then part of that tribe, not because you're ethnically related to somebody, but because spiritually you've been infused with the power of their ancestors. This is what lineages are. If you go, China's changing rapidly, but you go back 50 or 100 years, if you wanted to learn something in China, you would learn a village or a family style. Like when you see the word ga on the end of it, or gar, Hung gar is a type of kung fu. It means Hung family style. So you have you would be in part of a family. This is what lineage is. You guys, if you do the Hul breath, that is the initiation into the thunder path. You want to be part of my lineage? Do the Hul breath. If you do that, you will be connected to the lineage of ancestors and masters that work through me and empower me. You will have a better understanding of what I teach, because you will have, the ancestors will help you understand. I didn't make this stuff up. This is what's been taught to me. Sure, I've done a bunch of research, but my research has been mainly to verify what has been downloaded into me. Okay, so let's see, that's one question. You said, you asked me about lineage. So the purpose of lineage is to connect you to your spiritual family. That's what gives you the authority. That's what gives authority for somebody to teach. That's what gives somebody energetic power, is the connection to the lineage. So if you don't realize it now, every time that you're doing the Warrior 90 Day, those practices, whenever you're doing any of the lightning qigong or the 5 element, the Mao Shan stuff, you're connecting to my lineage. And you're connecting to multiple lineages as well. You're connecting to the ancestors who taught me and are teaching me about my ethnic tradition, the ones that have taught me the Vedic stuff, the ones that are connecting me to the East Asian. This is a syncretic lineage. They're all coming together. I remember 15 years ago asking about this. And it was very clear to me that they were saying, in essence, if I were to put it into words, they would be saying, we are multiple lineages from different parts of the world. We are coming together to create a new lineage where we syncretize all these things. And I am one of the people who is giving this, who's transmitting this knowledge to the world. Okay? So that's the purpose of lineage. Authority in light of syncretism. I don't know what that means. I don't give a crap about authority. Teachers are just, teachers are important. You have to respect the teacher. Which is why if somebody's disrespectful to me, I block them from the channel. Besides the fact that, even if I do get personally offended, that's not the real reason. The reason is because if I let somebody come in who's disrespectful to me, they're disrespecting my lineage masters, and I can't let that happen. So I'll block somebody because they're not obviously not right, and they'll be disrespectful to the lineage that's working through me. So when you're respectful to the teacher, you're respectful to those energies that that teacher is working through. It doesn't mean that the teacher themselves necessarily has any authority. Both of my Maoshan teachers, I no longer have any connection with either of them. And the reason for it is because they're very toxic, destructive people. I've learned everything that I can learn from them. But in terms of authority, like, I gave them authority and I followed their instructions to the letter. By the way, I didn't leave them. I was kicked out of the sect for political reasons. So that freed me up. So now I'm free to do whatever I want. So I've never asked anybody. I've never once asked anybody to call me anything, because I don't care about that. I've never asked you to call me Sifu or Master or anything like that. If you choose to call me that, I let you do it because it's beneficial to you, because you're really giving respect to the lineage that's working through me. If somebody calls me Mike, I'm okay with that too. I really don't care. So I don't know what you're asking about authority in light of syncretism. I could care less about that. There's always been people that have come and brought new awarenesses, and many times they're often not respected by the intelligentsia of that time. So it really doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is, if you train with somebody, does your life get better? Objectively, does your life get better? People who get into cults, objectively their lives get worse, but they're so wrapped up in authority and worshiping the guru that they forget what the whole point of it is. So I have personally, I don't care about a following. Nobody around me in my life who knows me in a physical way knows what I do, because I'm not interested in that. I have no need for followers. If everybody stopped following me, I'd be fine. As long as I could pay my bills and do what I want to do, I'd be totally fine. So I don't know why you're asking about authority. It doesn't mean anything to me. The only authority is, like I said, is does it work? That's all that matters. Does it work? If it works, don't fix it. You say the danger of decontextualizing risks I encounter often from skeptics saying only traditionals can know and teach. I don't know what that means. Again, people, that's just ego garbage. It doesn't mean anything. What does that mean? So, I was given, by the way, there was a point in time where I was given, from my teacher, I was given a certification. He gave me a little card. He had laminated. He laminated a card. He had my name and said that I was a whatever, certified something or other. It doesn't mean anything. People go and they get certified in this and they get certified in that. It doesn't mean anything. Not ultimately. It doesn't matter. The gods and the ancestors are the ones who decide who they're going to work through. I got nothing against people who are certified, and I'm not judging anybody's power or legitimacy or anything, one way or another. But what you're telling me is that it sounds like you're worried about people criticizing you because you're not part of what they consider to be, who gives a crap? The people who talk like that are people who are insecure. They're projecting. Like the guy that just told me that I'm not qualified to call myself a master shaman because, according to him, I don't have the power to dislodge the soul from the body. Which, first off, what is that? How does he know that? And second off, it's not true. But what I saw is his projection. His projection was that he didn't feel he had authority. He didn't feel he was legitimate. And so when somebody comes along that reminds him of himself, here I am on YouTube, and I'm teaching openly. I'm professing that I have a degree of mastery over this, that I understand this, that, he's seeing himself. He obviously wants to be a master shaman, because those are the words that he focused on. He obviously wants to be a master shaman. He doesn't feel that he deserves to be one. So when he sees me coming along, he sees himself in me unconsciously. He projects his insecurity and his self-hatred and his self-criticism onto me. And so he tells me, who gives you the right to call yourself a master shaman? You can't do blah, blah, blah. So I blocked him. I don't need that on here. Let him go find whatever he's looking for. So that's, if you're talking about people that you encounter, often skeptics saying only traditionals, I mean, who cares? Who cares what they think? They're just projecting onto you their insecurity. They don't feel that they have the right to teach, so they're going to project that onto you. If you don't have the right to teach, what will happen is when you teach people, nothing will happen. If you have the right to teach and you teach people something and their lives get better, that by definition makes you a teacher. A teacher is somebody who gives knowledge to somebody who didn't have it before, and those people are able to integrate that knowledge and do something with it. All right, what else? Honest feeling, he says again, where do we go here? Honest feeling, I woke up, nope, that's no, nope, let's see. Honest feeling, I feel that my ability to talk about syncretism I can only do by justifying my previous works with traditional lineages and not lived experience that is growing as I work more with you. So Jameson, do you see that this is a theme in your life? So what is the theme in your life? You were devalued continuously as a kid, and even beyond a kid. You were devalued. And so this is going to be your work. So let me tell you about what it means to be a teacher. Yogi Bhajan said this. Now, Yogi Bhajan was a destructive cult leader, but he was also a brilliant innovator. And he said that, and he gave people a teacher's oath. So when they became teachers of Kundalini Yoga, they had an oath, and they were to say this to themselves before they taught class, and it's brilliant. And you say, I am not a man, I am not a woman, I am not myself, I am a teacher. Brilliant, because that's exactly what it is. Jameson, you have a personal issue. You have a personal issue about being devalued, not trusting your own feelings. That's your personal issue. That is not something that your students need to be infected by. The way that you protect them from that is when you show up to teach them, you remember that you are imperfect. And you also remember that you are just a conduit for the ascended masters. You will find that if you teach, and you teach what you've learned, like if you study my Qigong and you master it enough so that you understand it, you know how to make it work for you. You'll have your own way of explaining it that might be different from me. Somebody will come and they'll say, hey, Jameson, can you teach me some Qigong? And you'll teach them celestial Qigong, but you'll teach them the way you understand it. But because you've been able to master it to some degree, you will be able to help them do the same. They will benefit from it. If they open up their meridians and they start to feel power, they're going to look to you and they're going to see you in a light that you don't see yourself as. They're going to project onto you something that you're personally not. Your job as a teacher, when they look at you and they say, you're a guru, you're a divine being, your job is to say thank you and nothing more. You're not supposed to say, yes, I am, or no, I'm not. You simply say thank you. Because then you've now opened up a conduit, because your job is just to be the symbol for them to connect through you to the ancestors who are teaching through you. That's why in traditional Vedic culture, you bow to the feet of the guru. That's why you take the guru's picture and you put it on your mantle. If you were to take a picture of me and put it on your altar, it wouldn't mean you were worshiping me, and I'm not telling you to do this or not do this. If you were to do that, you would be then wanting to connect with the ancestors who work through me. I'm just a symbol to you. And if I'm doing my job, I'm going to have my own internal experience of how screwed up I am, and I am very screwed up. I'm a very, normal human being with some very serious issues that I'm still working through. But it has nothing to do with my ability to teach. I still have the ability to put energy into people. There have been times when I've just barely touched people and they've gone into whole other states of being, and they've called me the Buddha and all kinds of other stuff. And I don't talk them out of it. Because if I do that, it means I'm bringing my false ego, my false humility into it, saying, oh, that's not me. It's not about my experience. It's about their experience. And as long as I require them to pay me for my time, I will have no agenda and I won't be able to harm them. If I don't have an agenda, which is why I charge people for my services. If you want my time, you've got to pay the human to show up and let the divine come through him. You're paying for my time. You're not paying for the teaching. Teaching is priceless. I can't put a number on that. But if you pay me for my time, then I won't want anything from you, and I'll only be there to help you. Just like a doctor. You pay a doctor, the doctor's only interested in healing you. You may not like what he does or the medicine he gives you, but he's interested in your healing, and he doesn't care if you like him or not. I don't care if you like me or not. I'm interested in helping you. If you're not interested in putting everything you have into learning, I don't want to teach you. Because then the only thing that's going to come out of it is it will descend into some messed up personal relationship, which I'm not interested in. You'll either hate me or you'll love me, or if I don't get what I want, I may want something from you. This is Jameson, you just have to be a person. You let the ancestors teach through you. And if the ancestors have chosen to help somebody, they will see you as a teacher. If the ancestors have not chosen you to be somebody, then they will judge you and say you don't have the right to be teaching. That's how I know. If you watch the comments, it happens all the time. Watch the comments of my videos. At some point you'll see somebody will ask a passive-aggressive critical question. And I'll know what they're saying, but I'll say, please explain, why do you want to know that? Why is that important to you? And like the last one, the guy says, you don't have the right to call yourself a master shaman because you can't do less and such. You can go and see my response. My response is, oh, good. Now I know what your definition is. And since I am not the right teacher for you, I'm going to go ahead and block you so you can watch the channel and find the teacher who will help you. Best of luck. And I'm dead serious about that. I'm not just being, cranky. I'm dead serious. I don't want to waste their time. I also don't want their negativity on my channel, but I don't want to waste their time. It means that they don't have, either they're not ready for it, and so they're not willing to, get rid of their false humility, because that's his false humility, calling me unqualified. That's his false humility, his ego. So he's either not ready for it, or I'm not the right teacher for him. He's not destined to work with my ancestral masters. He might be destined to work with somebody else's. So the faster I get him moving in the right direction, the more I can help him. It's got nothing to do with me. So Jameson, these are your issues. You take them to your counselor, you take them to your therapist, and you don't let it get in the way of your students. If your students, because if you're doing your job, they're going to want to worship you, they're going to want to date you, they're going to want to sleep with you, they're going to want to be your best friend, or they're going to want to compete with you, and they're going to want to do all kinds of weird things based on their stuff. It's got nothing to do with you. And you don't talk them out of their experience. If they tell you that you're a divine being, you don't talk them out of that. You're not, but it's like going to a show. When I was an actor, the first couple of years I did theater, people would come and they would clap and stand and give me standing ovation, and afterwards they'd be wiping tears and telling me how brilliant I was. And if I hadn't done everything perfectly. If I had missed a line or if I didn't feel it in one of the scenes, I'd go, no, in scene so-and-so, I really screwed up. And they'd be looking at me like, why are you shitting all over my fantasy here? I just gave you a compliment. Why are you shitting all over me? Because I was being selfish. It was my false humility. And I learned, somebody pulled me aside and said, don't do that. You say thank you. They're having a good time. It doesn't matter that you didn't feel connected. That's meaningless. You say thank you. Because you're here to give them an experience. You're not here to, talk about yourself. So as a teacher, you're not here for your experience. You're here to help them. What else? Zach Jackson, I'm going to put you in a timeout because you don't seem to be listening to what I'm saying. If you've got an honest question, ask it. You've been on the channel. I expect you. I didn't mean to say that. It just came out of my mouth, so I don't know what that means. I expect you to put the time and effort into researching what I teach. Read some of my books. Watch more of my videos. This isn't a place for you to drop this weird stuff. So I'm going to put you in a timeout, which is not going to let you talk for a little while. You got to discipline yourself. Understand what we're here to do. Have respect for this process. Okay, what else? Jameson Son, question, is Aum chant neutral? My understanding is that it is. There are a few mantras that are universal and are that anybody can do, and Aum is one of them. It's actually pronounced Ong. So if you want to chant Aum, which even a lot of Vedics, East Indians don't understand it, you chant it Ong. The M sound, when you see the little Om character, there's a dot. That dot is an NG sound. The NG sound is seed sound endings, which is also the equivalent to the Ing rune, which connects the Kundalini and connects the upper centers and the lower centers. So it's pronounced Om, not Aum. And it is neutral. Having taken non-mixing seriously, but would like to be able to use mantra as a vehicle. I don't know. I mean, I teach mantra, you know that. So we're syncretic, so we combine the two. It's important to know how to do that, and it's important to get the right mantra based on your personal astrology. But if you've done that, you can mix mantra with anything else that works for you. What else? Fim sample CG, honest feeling. I woke up this morning and I realized that I didn't do my exercise yesterday night, and I felt angry and felt like something is missing in me. I felt so empty. So give yourself a break. Don't beat yourself up. I've done that. I did that recently. But I had gone surfing that day in a new spot, and I was blown away, and I was tired and all that. And by the time I was in bed, I was like, I forgot to do my. So what? I mean, if you're doing a 40-day vow, then you're going to have to start all over again. But if you're not in a 40-day vow or some kind of vow, then big deal. You missed a night. But it's a good sign. It means that you're really committed to the process. That's good. But don't cry over spilt milk. What else? Bobby Simpson, honest thought. All right, so we do honest questions and honest feelings. So let me see if your honest thought is something that I like or not. You say, I saw a shaman in a dream a couple weeks ago. He said I need to focus on what I really want. The dream was probably a product of listening to your channel. I don't have a response to that. It's not a question and it's not a feeling, and I have no idea if it's true or not. I would be willing to believe that that could be the case. It could be multiple things. But yeah. What else here? Legendary DJ, hi, Black Earth Productions. He's got a good channel himself, and he's got his own website, blackearthproductions.com. Let's see. Legendary DJ, question, what effect does sun gazing have on one's chi? So Legendary DJ, welcome to my channel. I tell people that I ask them to not ask me questions about things I don't teach. So if you've been on my channel and you've watched a lot of my videos, you will never hear me talk about sun gazing because I don't know anything about it. So I can't answer your question. So this is why I ask a question about what I teach, and I'll want to talk about it. Joe 2.1, let's see, where are we? Joe 2.1 question, does that work through the cosmic web? I don't know, what do you mean by that? You got to be specific. As you can see, it's been a long time since whatever I was talking about. So you have to bear in mind, I may not know what context. It's probably been 20 minutes since you wrote that. So does what work through the cosmic web that connects everything through time and space? I don't know how to answer your question. Lady Ember, that's, okay, that's not a question. Let's see, Rohan Kapoor throws down 100, I don't know, is that rupees or something? Thank you for whatever it is, I appreciate everything. Question, what's your thought on afterlife? Is it heaven, hell, or reincarnation? Why reincarnation when it's against my will as life is suffering? All right, so Rohan Kapoor, welcome to the channel. Watch my channel. Go into my channel. If you don't know how to do that, go onto YouTube and type in Thunder Wizard and my channel will come up. On my channel, go into the playlists and then watch the videos on karma. I've got many of them. I've got videos on reincarnation. Watch those. So you're throwing an assumption, which I don't agree with, which is life is suffering. I never said that. You will never, ever hear me say that life is suffering. It's just not true. It's only suffering if you're out of balance. You have the ability, it is your destiny, your dharma to become balanced. If you choose to do so, you can live in a state of balance, in which case your life will not be suffering. So watch my videos on the shamanic secret commandment to a perfect life. You'll understand, if you understand that formula in that book, if you don't want to read the book, watch the videos. I read the book on my videos. If you can master that, you will never have to worry about that assumption that life is suffering. So it's interesting, you know, the Vedic religion, which is now the modern evolution of that, is the Hindu religion. You know, I look to them as masters and teachers of what I'm teaching. But what's interesting is that so many Hindus believe that life is suffering. So many Hindus believe that karma is punishment. They don't understand their own religion. Because that is not true, what you just said. It's just not true. My thought on the afterlife, is it heaven, hell, or reincarnation? Why does it have to be one of those? Why can't it be all three? Heaven, hell, or reincarnation is also here. I've reincarnated myself without having left this body. You should also seek to reincarnate yourself in the body that you have. You can do that if you perfect some of these principles and live them, and it may take years. When I got on a plane in June of 2019, and I got on a plane and I came to Australia, I looked down at Los Angeles as I was flying over the ocean, and I realized that I was dead to that person. I'm no longer that person. I mean, the ghosts of him keep flooding back, but that's not who I am anymore. I've reincarnated. I'm starting over from scratch. I don't have that person's past. I don't have that person's pain. I don't have that person's self-directed negativity. And when it comes back, I wipe it clean. I'm a different person here. Nobody knows me from back then. And I'm not going to bring any of that stuff with me. So you can do that. There is an underworld. If you don't achieve liberation, which means liberation means that you've had so much fun in this life that there's nothing more that human life can offer you. If you're angry, upset, if you believe life is suffering, if you want to escape this world, then you haven't maxed it out. So the people, and many people do, who in this life talk about life is suffering, life is pain, nothing goes my way, the devil this, what aliens that, or karma this, or whatever. That's like somebody who's in Disneyland who's complaining, who's sitting on a park bench and is complaining about the long lines for the ride, or their hot dog didn't taste good. They don't realize where they are. They don't realize that they're there to have fun. It's like somebody in Disneyland who's brought their laptop and they're doing their taxes. That's not what you're here to do. You're here to have fun. If you're experiencing sadness, misery, pain, understandable. Your job is to release those things by going after the fun your soul wants to have. When you do that, you release and work through the karma. Karma is not a judgment. Karma means work. It's the result of things you do. On my other channel, somebody complained about, having impregnated some woman, and it was her fault because she lied to him and told him that she was on the pill. And I said, she didn't force you to have unprotected sex. You did that all on your own. You did that. That's your karma. You created that because you weren't selfless enough to go, you know what? I'm not married to this woman, and even though she's on the pill, I'm going to be the responsible one, and I'm going to insist that I wear a condom. And if she doesn't like that, she's the wrong person for me. So karma is just that. It's stuff that you've done to yourself, and you now feel that somebody's doing it to you. And it's just not the case. And whatever karma you have, you can work through. And by going after what gives you joy, you will burn through your karma. So the afterlife, if you go to the underworld, you may go to an underworld of celebration. The underworld means that you're going to reincarnate, but you might spend your time in the underworld celebrating, creating your own place of perfect relaxation. You may create a hell for yourself. The hell, if you create for yourself, is going to be your own self-directed negativity. And the goddess of the underworld in the Norse tradition is Hela, which is where the word hell comes from. She will stand by and watch you. If you want to create your own holodeck filled with demons and pain and suffering, she'll let you do that. She'll stand by and watch. She'll stand by and watch for 10,000 years, 1,000,000 years if necessary. When you're done beating yourself up, then that hell will fade and she'll be standing there and she'll say, are you ready to heal now? And then she will guide you in your healing. You'll face your true self, you'll heal, you'll look at a life review, you'll go, oh, I did that, I should have done this, I really want to do this. And then you'll say, I want to go back and have fun. And she'll say, okay, and she'll let you out, you will be reincarnated and you will have another life. If you go to Devaloka, if you go to Valhalla, it means that heaven, it means that you've accomplished everything you want to accomplish in this physical world. So it doesn't have to be one or any of them. You say reincarnation is against my will. That's not true. That's not true. Nobody reincarnates who didn't choose to reincarnate. Every single person chooses to come back. Watch more of my channel to understand this. Black Earth Productions question. Is a sort of sci-fi soul family politics, I don't know what that means, been taking place in terms of disposition to lineage in the case of someone having different portions of DNA when it comes to this topic? I don't know what that means. If I knew what that meant, I'd be able to answer the question. But it sounds like you think so. So again, I would have to watch you talk about it to know what you meant. But anyway, I can't answer questions I don't understand, so I can't answer that. Jameson, response. Non-mixing equals not mixing mantras, for example, not working with other mantras I've been empowered with while still trying to ground. Why are you doing this? You're telling me that you're using other mantras to ground the mantra that I gave you? Why are you doing that? Listen, either I know what I'm doing or I don't, and I'm not saying one way or another. There have been times when I've given people mantras that were wrong for them. and I've looked back at their chart and given them the ones that they wanted. There's been no shortage of people whom I've given mantras to who want different ones, and after really talking to them, I find out that no, they're just, this is part of discipline. Discipline is you stick with what you got. So you're not helping yourself by doing that. So asking me, is Om neutral, or you're asking me that, again, it helps if you tell me in the beginning why you want something. Asking me a general question, is Om neutral? Yeah, intellectually I can respond and say that it is, but what you're really saying is, I'm trying to find another mantra because I'm uncomfortable and I want something that will make me feel comfortable, and I think this one will do it. Will this one do it? Because the one you gave me is really driving me up the wall. And so it doesn't help me if you don't tell me in the beginning. So I don't think you should do that. If you really think that the mantra I've given you doesn't work for you, we need to talk about that. But no, you shouldn't be mixing mantras around, because when you do a mantra, a specific mantra is working with a specific planet. It's also working with a specific deity. And there's a rishi, a seer, means somebody who saw the mantra. You're dealing with all these. The rishi sits on top of your head. If you have multiple mantras, you've got a bunch of different cooks in the kitchen. You've got all these different rishis and all these different gods pounding against each other, and you could be causing yourself real damage. At the very least, you could be neutralizing all of it. But what this means, Jameson, is that you're uncomfortable. And what you're doing is very common. I've done it. And if you get a mantra that's right for you, what's going to happen is all of your unconscious garbage is going to come to the surface. You're going to be uncomfortable and you're going to want to stop. You're going to want to change. You're going to want to better deal yourself all the time. This is very common. And this is why you need to be disciplined. This is why it's important to have a teacher who knows what they're doing. If you're with a teacher and they don't know what they're doing, stop taking mantras for them. If you believe, I'm not judging you for this, but if you believe that I'm not giving you the right mantra, then you should find somebody who can give you that. There's a couple different ways to do mantra rituals. One is to do them for 40 days. You can search my channel for that. Another one is to do the same mantra for a year. But traditionally, people knew they were going, when somebody says, I want to become Mr. Olympia, when somebody says, I'm training for the Olympics, they know they're going to be stressed beyond their comfort zone, and they're going to have to stick to the diet and stick to the routine. They know it's going to be challenging. So a mantra can potentially be challenging. If somebody has a lot of unresolved psychological issues, which, Jameson, you and I both know what your history is, then you're going to go through some challenges. It's going to be difficult. All of your unconscious stuff is going to come to the surface, and you're going to want to run away from that. Your unconscious resistance is going to kick in, and it's going to try and talk you out of doing the work. I don't think that, you're free to do whatever you want, but if you want the benefits, stick with it. The big thing for you, Jameson, is just learning to be comfortable in your own skin. That one EFT affirmation, which you've mentioned, even though I have this feeling, I thoroughly and completely accept myself. It's not a mantra, but you can use that whenever you're uncomfortable. Even though I have this feeling, I thoroughly and completely accept myself. That's really what you need to live by. Because Jameson, because of what you've been through, I'm sorry to say, your recovery is going to be very challenging. Emotionally and psychologically, you have a long road ahead of you. I'm not wishing you ill, but you're going to have to employ some discipline and some patience in order to get through it. And your knee-jerk reaction to constantly bully yourself, criticize yourself, change things around, because understandably you're trying to find something that will make you feel better. But unfortunately, when you eat bad fish, you got to puke it up. And until you've puked it all up, it's no fun. So you're going to have to live with some painful feelings and uncomfortable feelings. And, this is why for you, 12 steps, talking to a sponsor on a daily basis, meditating on a daily basis. If the mantra is too much for you, then don't do a mantra. Just go do some deep breathing. Do some alternate nostril breathing or something like that. If you want to talk about it next time we talk, we'll figure out something that'll be best for you. What else? Black Earth Production, soul family politics equals conflict in terms of codex genetics to what you were saying to individuals having different portions, specifically shamanic. So let me look back at your question. Is a sort of soul family politics been taking place in terms of disposition to lineage in the case of someone? So if I'm understanding you correctly, are you saying that there's been a syncretization on a genetic level? Is that what you mean? This idea that genetics is, lodged in stone is an illusion. There's no such thing. You can take two white people that look exactly the same, blonde hair, blue eyes, white skin, and you can look at them, they might even look related, and you can look at their DNA and find out that they are more divergent from each other than either of them would be to a dark-skinned African. This whole idea of genetics it's not a fixed thing. And it's constantly in flux, constantly changing. I have white skin, but when was the first? There wasn't like one day there was a black person and the next day, a white kid came out and everybody after that was white. It's gradual. Everything, like language, everything's changed, and we seem to forget we're in the midst of, who knows what we're going to turn into. Whitley Strieber, who claims to have, been abducted by aliens, and he talks about grays, what we think of as grays, the gray aliens and all that. I'm not saying I believe him, but I believe in the concept. He says that aliens aren't from another planet. They're from another time. They're humans far into the future who've traveled back into time to fix something so that there's some cataclysm supposedly that's going to happen, tens of thousands or millions of years from now. And they're going back into time to fix that. So that's what humans are going to look like. They're not black or white or anything. They're totally different species. They're on a totally different level. Just like us. The difference between chimpanzees and humans is 1%. It's only 1% DNA difference between humans and chimpanzees. And chimpanzees cannot make cars or fly planes or even speak languages. They can't cook dinner. They can't do basic, real basic human things. And they're only 1% different from us. So imagine if humans were to evolve 2% beyond where we are now. They'd be on a level we couldn't even comprehend. We would be like monkeys to them. Worse, we'd be like insects to them. That's 2%. So I guess your question, the answer to if I'm understanding your question, I say yes, but that's always been the case. It's not like now we're entering into something new. Of course, everything goes through jumps and stutters, and evolution goes through plateaus and all that. But you know what I mean? Again, I might not be understanding your question. That's the best answer I can give you. Baba Junzo, question: are there any shamanic benefits of asceticism? Yes. But first, why are you asking? I don't know why you're asking. But yes, there are benefits of asceticism. If you want to become a Dr. Manhattan, it is a good idea to live on a mountain and, not have interactions with other people. I don't think that's something that everybody can do. It's not practical for me. I don't want to do it. But I love where I live. I mean, I think I found the center of the universe. There's a place up here, a national park, that has the best surf in the world, that as far as I know. And it's a national park, and it's surrounded by nature and trees and forest, and it's popular. A lot of people go there, but so far that is the most peaceful place I've ever been in my whole life. I felt like I found home. Why am I saying that? So for me, I mean, I can't be an ascetic. If I could get rid of all the people and put a little hut, I'd live there all by myself. I can't do that. It's a really popular national park. People go there from all over the world to surf and to, party and to have vacations. But even when I'm surrounded by hundreds of people, I feel such an amazing power and healing from that place. And that's what we need to find, all of us. We need to find that perfect balance, and it may take us a lifetime, and there may be different places along the way. Earlier in my life, the place that I was the most happy was above 8,000 feet in the southern Sierra Nevada mountains in the Sequoia National Forest. That was my happy place. And now that it's not my happy place anymore. My happy place is here in the rainforest on the coast, surfing these beautiful waves. So asceticism, it just depends on the individual. Of course, there's benefits to it. The real question is, why are you asking? You say, I'm asking because I feel a deep connection to asceticism, close to nature. So go do it. That's your soul. Your soul will tell you what it wants. Go do it. Don't stop. Go do it. Go make it happen right now. The longer you wait, the more unhappy you're going to be. All right. So Black Earth Productions says, right, he says it would be a holdup in terms of evolution. So are you asking me, do I think that there's a holdup in terms of evolution? I don't feel that. I think conflict is part of that. You and I have been around. I'm older than you, I think, but throughout my whole lifetime, there has never been one American election where it hasn't been the most important election in history. And if our people don't win this election, there hasn't been one election where that hasn't been said and where it hasn't been true. And I believe that evolution is like that. Evolution is always, conflict is what brings evolution. Conflict is, again, we're in three-dimensional reality, so we experience evolution as conflict. But, on a spiritual level, we don't have that experience the same way. So he says you're agreeing with me. Okay, good. Yeah. All right, so this has been turned out to be a great video. Oh, here's another question. How does astrology benefit you? What do you mean? Benefit me personally? Or how does astrology benefit somebody else? So Bobby Simpson, welcome to my channel. Go on to my channel and type in astrology. I have hours and hours and hours of videos on astrology. Your question is hours long in explaining it. So it means you haven't watched my videos on astrology, especially Vedic astrology. So instead of wasting your time going through it now, you can just go onto my channel and go to the playlists or search around and find all of my videos about astrology, and you will be able to answer that question yourself. Anything else? Nothing about what we're talking about today? All right. All right, so thunderwizard.com. That is the main website for this path. And your subscription there at any level will give you, at the very least, mastery of shamanism, up to manifestation mastery, up to becoming a perfected immortal, becoming a Dr. Manhattan. So subscribing at any one of those levels will give you access to those teachings. It is also the way that I stay on here. It's what pays my bills and helps me to do what I do. What I'm really focused on right now is the Warrior 90-day Lightning Qigong. So I recommend everybody go there. If you subscribe at that level, you will have access to everything else that I mentioned. Whoops, Warrior 90-day Lightning Qigong. I can't talk and type at the same time. Subscribe there at thunderwizard.com and you'll have access to everything on the channel. Courses.thunderwizard.com is everything. All of my books, all of my services, astrology, runes, exiting the matrix, etc., etc., etc. And then we've got energyhealing.thunderwizard.com. You can go check that out if you want. And then if you want the elite practice, you go to maoshan.thunderwizard.com. And ideally, I want people who are doing that to also be doing the Warrior 90-day. Because the Warrior 90-day subscription at the on the thunderwizard.com site is going to be our university, where we talk about, in my experience, the most powerful shamanic practice on the planet. If there is one more powerful, I haven't found it. And for the first time in history, I am teaching it on this large YouTube scale. It's never been taught outside of private one-on-one. I'm breaking all the rules. So I recommend that, and that's what I'm really going to be focusing on. All right, so that's it. I appreciate all of you. Again, thanks for coming on the channel. And if there's nothing else, I'm going to go eat some food and figure out what I'm going to do for the rest of the day and plan out my surfing for the week. So that's it. I will see you guys all later. Take care of yourselves.